Hi, everyone. I have a fantastic guest with me today, Elizabeth April. I'm sure most of you probably know her, but if you don't, um, she is a channel for the Galactic Federation of Light, and she has been releasing her messages on YouTube for quite some time now. She's got a lot of followers. She's just released her first book. And I'd just like to say, Elizabeth, thank you so much for joining me. It's a real honor to have you as a guest. And I know that I've been aware of you for some time, and I've been wanting to reach out and, connect and do a Zoom or something together. But just like you, just so busy, caught up with things. And then recently we had a mutual hater, and it sort of pushed me into contacting you. And I'm really, really glad that that happened, because here we are now doing this interview. So when I first heard of you, somebody sent me one of your videos. This is going back, a long time. I mean, probably 3 years, 4 years even. I'm not sure when, but it was a long time ago. And I remember replying and saying, I don't really listen to other channels that much, but thanks anyway, because I'm getting sent all these videos. Didn't think anything of it. And then literally a few days later, someone else sent me a video, Elizabeth April. And I thought, well, that's funny. Same thing. I don't really listen to other channels. I try to sort of stay clear in myself. Sometimes I do, but and then a friend of mine, she said, oh, there's this great channel. Have you heard of her? Elizabeth April. I said, I don't believe it. I've literally had people send me her videos this week. And because this had come from my friend, I thought, right. She goes, no, you have to listen to her. I said, right, I'm going to check her out. And, I'm just blown away with the information that you have, the connection that you have, the accuracy of your information, the authenticity that you have. And you're so young. And I know the energies are different now than they were when I was your age. But I remember when I was your age, I was only just waking up and confused and trying to put all of these different realms and dimensions together. And why is this happening to me? And you're, the same age, and yet you're so clear and focused. And as I said, I know the energies are different now. But it is absolutely amazing that you can have such an amazing, fantastic connection. So thank you. Thanks for joining me. It's really exciting.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you so much for having me. And it's kind of been the same thing. Like you've been in my little world, in my scope for quite some time. And I have people sending me, your stuff, and you've got to check out Magenta Pixie. And so I definitely I'm very familiar with you, but I'm the same way. I really try and avoid listening to other people and other channelers' content, just because I want to make sure that the information coming through is as clear and unobstructed by other perceptions and even wording as possible. So you and I are in the same place with that. But I even asked my friend and our mutual friend, Phil Good, and I said, hey, what do you think of Magenta? Just because we were having this. And he's like, oh, she's a master. Like she is a master soul. And I'm like, all right, done. I'm very excited to get into this and connect with you finally.
Yeah, I am too. And it's exactly the same with me. Of course, I've been watching your stuff now. I've watched quite a few of your videos, and I have bought your book, and I am about, I would say, a quarter of the way in. And, again, so impressed with your writing and the way that you are able to explain awakening and what happens with awakening and the different stages that you can go through. If I had only had that book when I was waking up, it would have helped me so much. So I just want to apologize if this internet recording is a bit sort of choppy. We have terrible winds here in the UK today. I didn't realize it would be this bad, so I hope it doesn't affect the internet, but it could do. So I apologize for everyone listening if it does. So I've written some things down here. Yeah, the first thing I noted was I actually listened to your interview with Jason and Tia for the Inspire Health podcast, Jason Lokin. Yeah. And you mentioned, and this is also in your book, how the first thing you kind of that got you into this energy, into this frequency, was your father that was doing past life regression. And so he suggested to you, would you like to do this? And it's just so similar to me, because my father was a hypnotist, and he took me into hypnosis when I was 11 to
Wow.
teach me. I was having problems swimming, and I still had my like armbands, my water wings on at 11 years old. So I was so scared of the water. So he took me through hypnosis, which worked. And then he started to work in a deeper way with me, because what was happening with me while I was in hypnosis was I was going into this state where I would answer him back. Now, I know that that happens all the time now, but back then, my father, as a hypnotherapist and as a hypnotist, had never seen it. So he was fascinated with my ability to talk to him from the perspective of what he said was the subconscious mind. So that was my first kind of attempt at channeling. And it looks to me like, it's the same with you, that connection with your dad. So talk to me a little bit about
Wow.
that.
Yeah, that's so cool. That's so fascinating. Yeah, I really feel like after the past life regression, it opened me up to A, reincarnation is real, and B, time is simultaneous, right? So two huge concepts to unpack. And then when I went away to university, so about 2 years later, 16, 17, 18 years old, I went away to university, and I ended up copying my dad's past life regression book, his hypnosis techniques. And I started doing that to friends of mine in university, which was really cool. And, I also realized at the time as well, and I'm sure your dad would agree, that not everyone is able first go to be regressed right into a trance-like state, because of the attachment that one would have around their reality and who they are, right? It's like some people are just not willing to let go of the here and now to really explore the other. And so at a certain point in time, I asked myself, in an hour and a half long regression that takes a really long time, could I potentially put myself into a trance-like state and channel for other people? And that was the big switch for me in not just giving past life regression, but regressing myself and being able to open up those channels and say, great, now I can direct myself. Let's go to a past lifetime. Let's go off this planet. Let's go explore, the ocean. Like, let's go to all of these different aspects. And then I started exploring in that trance-like state. Let's go to other places that have nothing to do with me. Let's go see who Jesus was. Let's go back into ancient Greece. Let's go back into, the building of the pyramids. And I really feel like that place of being in a trance or hypnotized, right? That place where you're kind of removed and separated from your body in this moment, that's really truly astral traveling, remote viewing, astral projection. And some of us, like you and I, are just, I think we've studied that in past lifetimes. So it's quite easy to get back into it in this lifetime to say, okay, cool. Now I can just guide myself rather than having someone guide me or having me guide someone else. And that's how I was able to channel other people's information as well. I put myself into a trance-like state, and then I ask questions basically to their subconscious or their soul, and I'm able to navigate their frequency that way. So I think it's really beautiful that you and I really got our ability started from that place. And I really want to develop some sort of course in this lifetime, helping other people get into a trance, and not just, okay, you're there, but then also being able to navigate that state of being to gain access to information and insights.
That would be amazing, April. And I think that would be very needed. With my father, I was only 11. So, I was younger, but then he taught me self hypnosis. And because my father was very sort of more on the psychology side and hadn't really touched anything like past life regression, it was very much the mind and sort of Carl Jung and all that sort of stuff, and he studied with a very, very, well respected hypnotist in London who taught him everything he knew. And, my father was incredibly good at what he did. And so he taught me self hypnosis and my younger brother and sister. But what he gave to us was like a protective suggestion. So whenever we went into hypnosis, he gave us the same suggestion, and it was kind of, I guess, an immunity to our own thoughts becoming suggestion, our own random thoughts becoming suggestion, or outside influence from becoming suggestion. So he gave us this sort of power to be able to focus our own minds. Well, we didn't know when we were children, but of course, to this day, my brother and sister are both awake. They've never ever gone to sleep since, and I haven't. And so, now with everything that's going on in sort of 2020 and 2021, we sit down, and of course, my father, sadly, he passed away 3 years ago. But we sit down and think, our dad gave us such a powerful tool and such an amazing, amazing gift. And so because he saw that as the subconscious mind, but to me it was a being, and I called it subby. And obviously after 11, 12, 13, I sort of didn't want to do that anymore, and I was with my mates and wanted to go out with boys, and I kind of shut that down a little bit. And when I sort of went through what I call my proper awakening, which is about the age you are, was where my proper awakening took place, it was the same sort of thing, but this time it was like spiritual. And the nine, it was white spirit at the time, but obviously now the nine, said to me, what actually happened, and this obviously happened to you, Elizabeth, there's a certain brainwave state that takes place when you go into that trance, go into hypnosis. And once you've gone into that brainwave state, the brain never forgets how to do it. And so that's opened you to channeling. And the very same thing opened me to channeling. And I know many people can get there from many different ways, but I'm just sort of struck by the similarities. And in your book, I'm reading your book, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I so know what you mean. And that happened to me in maybe a slightly different way. And, it's wonderful the way you've been able to share your awakening in your book. So anyway, I've got some questions. So I did want to just say, obviously, you went into the past life regression. When did this actually become the GFL community? How did you get to the Galactic Federation from there?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, I had extrasensory abilities. And then I shut down those abilities at around the age of 10 because I really just wanted to be normal, fit in, have friends, not be the weird kid. And then at 16, I did the past life regression after, depression and questioning and anxiety and all of that kind of heavy stuff in the teen years. And then I was kind of still in it, still in life a lot, in the next couple of years. 18 was really my huge, like my official awakening, as you kind of mentioned. And that's when I had the freedom. That's when I moved away from home and I was able to really navigate life in my own way. And so started with the past life regression for others, moved into trance. At a certain point in time, I was able to astral travel, remote view. I was working on lucid dreaming, telepathy, all of those kind of things. So I was very open, gaining access to lots of downloads, even like crazy quantum physics downloads that were pretty mind-blowing at that age. And then I was having all these recalls and flashbacks to past lifetimes. I was at this point where I would stub my toe or smile at a stranger on the street and get thrown back into a past life. And so I was very open. If you asked me about aliens at that time, I would probably tell you, they're definitely out there somewhere, but there's no way they would bother with little old us. Like, who are the human beings? Why would they care about us? Like, we're just one planet, in the entire universe. And so in one of my past lifetimes, I practiced a meditation called Vipassana, silent meditation, where you observe all of your sensations objectively. And I wanted to do that again. And turns out there was a Vipassana center, an hour away from me. And I was living in Canada at the time. And so I went away to a 10-day silent meditation retreat where I went back into the study of Vipassana. On the second day and the second night of the meditation retreat, I ended up getting abducted very consciously by interdimensional beings. And they were tall white beings. They were definitely very malevolent, I would call them, not so good. They put a tracking chip in my right ear. It was all very, very fear-based, to the point where I knew in that moment, this is not my own fear. There's no way. And I learned later that they had the ability to release chemical compounds in human's brain to actually incite deeper amounts of fear. So it kind of paralyzes you. And that was it. It was pretty quick, abduction wise, but it was very obviously a huge pivotal turning point. It was basically 16 for the past life regression, opening up my world, and then 18 for the alien conscious alien abduction, to open up my world to say, oh my goodness, not only are they real, but they're here. So why are they here, and who are they, and why do they care about humans? Therefore, who are humans, and why are we here? And are they a part of the missing link? And so I ended up having a little bit of psychic surgery a couple weeks after the abduction experience. I guess what is it called, the psychic doctor or whatever, she ended up deactivating the chip in my ear, but I definitely felt tracked, watched very closely. I was scared to leave my body as I was before the abduction, just because I felt like, are they going to come in my body? Like, what do they really want? After the chip was deactivated and removed, I was free again, and this time I had all the questions of, who are these beings? And surprisingly, I started having very vivid recall and very vivid flashbacks to myself as interdimensional beings after my alien experience. So I would be walking down the hallway of my university, and all of a sudden, in the middle of the day, I would be flashing back to myself as an 8-foot tall gray being walking down the hallway of a dimly lit spaceship. I'm like, what the hell? Like, what is this? Who am I? And I remember looking at my 4 fingers and looking at my skin. And I mean, it was really wild, the kind of flashbacks that I was having. So I'm grateful for the fear-based abduction. First of all, because I have such a positive view on aliens these days that that I can now have the perspective of other people who get abducted in a fear-based way and have that compassion for those people who have experienced that. And then, of course, that abduction allowed me to really open my mind and understand, wow, they're here, and I was one of them, and I am here once again to get connected. So it was about a year after the abduction experience. That was in 2010. It was December 21st, 2011. So it was right before 2012, the world's going to end, basically timeline. And I was contacted by a Palladian being who came into my room. Up until this point, I was having, I was taking even other people into interdimensional past lifetimes at that point in time, but I had never really had a full conversation with them in the present moment, if that makes sense. So a Palladian came into my bedroom and said, we need you to show up for a meeting that's happening in 2 days from now, that is happening on December 21st, which was the equinox. I didn't know that at the time. And he said that it was going to take place at 2 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, which was my time zone. And he said, you need to make sure that you're awake for this. You cannot be sleeping. I would have joined anyway if sleeping, but at least I could consciously receive the information if I was awake. So at 1 a.m. on that night, or that early morning, I chugged back a whole thing of coffee. I was used to that. I was a student at the time. And I meditated until 2 a.m. And then at 2 a.m. on the dot, the Palladian being comes back in the room. I recognized him right away. He said, Elizabeth, come with me. We're going to a meeting. And we astral travel out. I was very used to astral traveling at that time. And we astral travel over to, believe it or not, the center of the moon. The moon is hollow, and there was a giant Galactic Federation meeting that was taking place in the middle, in the center of the moon. They talked about the 144,000. They talked about the reptilian. They talked about, basically the different agendas that are taking place on the planet. And they talked about the fact that we're all here because we are here to help advance humanity and the planet into a new Earth, into a new age. This was all new to me. I had no idea of any of this. I was just exploring at that time. And that was my first encounter with the Galactic Federation. And I've been doing like astral battle, taking down different rep bases and, crazy kind of battles in the astral, and talking to the Galactic Federation pretty much every month since then. And it wasn't until 2020, right at the beginning, where they told me, okay, now it's the time that we introduce ourselves to the world. And that is that video that basically went viral in March of 2020. And it was a direct message from the GFL. And I mean, it was no different for me because this is what I did every month. It was just different that I put it out online. And of course, all of these Starseeds and all of these Galactic Federation alumni individuals on this planet were able to gain access to that video and, open their mind and understand that, wow, there is something so much more going on. And this resonates with me. And I don't know why, but I'm here, So yes, that's kind of the journey of me connecting with the GFL.
That is just fantastic. And that alien abduction, which was a scary event, was actually a catalyst to the whole thing. And in your book, you talk about
Yeah.
ego death. So I guess you could say that that would have been an ego death because it opened up a whole new reality for you. And I mean, whilst I know the answer to this question, I want to ask you anyway, do you feel that this is what is happening right now on a collective level to everyone on this planet, potentially beyond this planet, but everyone on this planet on a quantum level within multiple lifetimes, that there is a massive ego death taking place collectively?
Oh, big time. I mean, I think at a collective level, we're going through a giant ego death at a societal level, but also at an individual level. And it was kind of funny, but maybe not funny. But when, everything first hit, a year ago, all the people who said, especially the males who said, I just want things to go back to normal. Those are the people who were not used to change, right? For all of us who have been working on it and ascending and awakening and questioning for many years before that, we were so used to having the collapse of identity, the collapse of our reality, and used to changing while we change with our frequency, which happens rapidly throughout your ascension. We were used to it. All right, cool. This is a new journey. Like, bring it on. Whereas everyone else who has been stuck in their ways and attached to their reality, it was very difficult for them to change and to grow and to expand with the opportunity that they were presented for 2020. And even still, there are a lot of people out there who continue to cling on to their old selves, and they still haven't gotten it yet. But I am so excited. I mean, I thought all of this stuff was going to happen 10 years ago, and I'm sure you did too, because we've been in it for a while. So I'm just excited that it's happening now. And it's probably pretty like crazy to say I'm excited that the entire world is collapsing, but I am, because it's been messed up for a very long time, and I'm finally seeing the change that I've always dreamed about. And yeah, it's going to take some time, and it's going to go through a lot of challenge and a lot of stress and a lot of suffering, but the outcome of it is going to be far better than what we've ever had before.
I completely agree with you. And I think if you look at your experience of the alien abduction, at the time, that would have been terrifying potentially and scary, but it was a catalyst to opening you up to all those previous memories, activating your DNA, you finding out who you are, and then going to that meeting and being privy to all of this information. And this is the same thing that's happening with everyone. It's a huge catalyst, and it's awful and terrible for them, but you can kind of see it happening when you see those that are, if you will, asleep. You can see the ego death. You can see it happening as they're, I want to do this and I want to do that, but they'll realize that maybe all of those things weren't so important. Maybe what really matters is, family and love and all of those things. But you say it's going to take time, and as I said, I agree with you. In your videos, you do talk about from now till 2024. So, can you talk about that a little bit? And, what do you see? Why is 2024 significant? Is that the end of entirely, or don't you know the answer to that yet? Is that just one of several timelines?
Yeah, it's I mean, anything we talk about in the future is one of infinite timelines, right? So it's very difficult to kind of have a prediction and be very clear about it. And that's why even the Galactic Federation, and I'm sure the Group of Nine, is very kind of sometimes coy, and that's a word I use a lot, or evasive on specific things in the future. One, they don't want us to, as messengers, to say something and have the reality, or have humanity or the people who watch us anchor that in. Right. So it's very difficult to give information in the right kind of ways. And so the timelines that I received was, what was it? It was between 2016 to 2018 was when all of the starseeds and the teachers needed to have complete collapses in their reality and complete rebirths in their reality to be the teachers of the new world, right? To really get us prepared for this timeline of, 2019 to 2024, 2020 to 2024. So I really feel that in so many ways, that I collapsed everything during that time to really get prepared for what's to come. And so this new timeline of 2020 to 2024, they gave me this timeline long before 2020. So it was pretty amazing when 2020 happened. And I'm like, yeah, this is basically, they said that that was the timeline of complete and utter collapse. So everything breaking down. I mean, we see a lot of systems breaking down already, even things like religious systems and education systems breaking down, economic systems breaking down and shifting. And it's all kind of getting us prepared for new solutions to come in. All of the solutions, right? Biodegradable plastic, free energy technologies, pollution converters, solutions, especially environmental solutions, even economic, financial solutions are all out there. But there isn't the space within society to allow the solutions in, especially because of who's running the current system as we know it. They're fighting so hard right now for the control that they want to maintain. It's a losing battle, but they will still fight, and they are still fighting. That being said, so I'm thinking that 2020 to 2024 is the years of collapse. I can't say for sure that it's the end of the old system as we know it. I'm hoping that it is. I mean, obviously, that's, I think, all of our hope. And then it's going to take probably another 4 years to bring in and integrate the new solutions with the new system. So it's not like, oh, 2024, this is the new Earth paradigm, this is 5D. It really takes a long time. But what's really beautiful about ascending into a new frequency is we're able to ascend into a higher frequency energetically first, because as you know, energy is quantum. It happens in an instant. Energy can transcend without space or time required, which is very efficient and effective. The physical space, the third density, takes a while to shift. The systems will take a while to break down and a while to rebuild. So that's kind of what I've channeled and what the GFL has told me. And from my knowledge, that's still aligned to those timelines.
Yeah, I've been told something very similar, although they only very recently gave me a date. And at first they told me not to share that date, and it was just for me, for the exact reason that you just said. But I ended up doing an interview the other day, and I asked the nine, is it okay to say? And as long as I explain exactly what you've just explained, that we don't want to actually manifest that, and it's just a guideline. So they gave me 2023 as the end of something to do with the controllers and the beginning of something else. But like you've said, it's not the end of all of it. It goes on, and we can have that now, as you've said, if we're anchored to 5D and we are able to access that vibration, then we can draw what you're calling all those solutions, which I sort of call New Earth. I'm sure you say New Earth as well. I feel, we can have that now, and we can actually go out of our house and have the intention to be a New Earth, and we will bump into someone just like us. We will have the synchronicities. We will have the magical events. I mean, and often it does happen from something that's not good. Like I said at the beginning of us talking, we had a mutual nasty person that was sort of being mean about us both. And it made me reach out to you straight away, because I just thought, oh, Elizabeth April, yeah, she's one of my soul sisters. We'll connect when the time is right. And I'm focused on my thing. But as soon as he came in to attack, I thought, I'm going to go speak to Elizabeth. And So that wasn't a nice thing, but it's brought us together now. And I think that's happening to everybody. And when you're in that alignment, you're drawing that towards yourself. So I'm just going to skim through some of these. Oh, I did want to ask you, so you do astral projection, and do you also use intentional dream work? So before you go to sleep, you give yourself an intention for something you might want to experience in dream time. Do you do automatic writing? Do you bring the GFL through that way? And while you're awake, say you're out and about and you need to speak to them, can you connect with them? All of those things. So that's the clairvoyance,
Yeah, okay.
yeah, and the clairaudience. Yeah.
Yeah, so intentional dream work, yes, I don't think I've ever called it that or even really thought about that. I usually always try and set an intention right before sleep, to heal myself, to clear something, to these days I try not to be too active in my dream time because I'm exhausted as it is. And then being able to kind of walk around and talk to them. Yes, but because I have had connection with spirit guides and interdimensionals and beings and also mediumship since I was like 2 years old, I have had to create very, very, very clear and healthy boundaries on when I open my third eye and basically when I open myself altogether. So I try and really shut myself down. The GFL knows how to contact me if they need to. There's actually a symbol that they use, and it looks like this actually. It's kind of just like an angle, and they use that to contact me. Like the other day, I was cooking something in the oven, and I ended up burning my wrist. You can probably see that little spot right there, and so it came through as this symbol, and I'm like, all right, guys, like I'm gonna connect with you. Sometimes I get very lightheaded or faint, and I know that that's also their way of they're pulling my astral body up to say, hey, we need to talk to you, but we need to talk to you consciously. I'll go up there all the time, as you probably know, and hold a conversation with you while I'm like chilling on the ship. And that'll happen all the time. But when they consciously need me to relay something, they'll definitely make themselves known and connect with me. But yeah, most of the time, I'm just enjoying my human throughout my day. And then as far as like automatic writing, I never really automatic write the Galactic Federation, but my book was the book that you have is all automatic writing. So that book came through 40,000 words in 4 days. I've been trying to write a book for 10 years, and it's like, well, assign 20 minutes a day to write what you need to write. And it was always like nails on a chalkboard. I did not expect to write a book at that time, and I had the space and the clarity, and the book just came through. And I've already written 20,000 words in 2 days of my next book, and that was all automatic and all channeled. And really, all I find that I need is I need the space, and I need to make sure that I'm typing it out, because writing it just takes too long. Like my thoughts I'm already on 2 sentences forward when I'm trying to write, one sentence down. So the typing's quite good because I just bang it out. But yeah, so I definitely do the automatic writing, but not necessarily a direct message from the GFL. Usually the Galactic Federation will come through with visuals, just because I am very clairvoyant, rather than clairaudient or any of the other clairs.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely, exactly the same as me. And it's really interesting because one of my books, The Black Box Program and the Rose Gold Flame is Antidote, which interestingly is all about V's and chemical things and radiation type of computerized signals and that sort of thing. That was
Mm-hmm.
written in 4 days as well, just by sort of just
Yeah.
totally focusing. And it was literally 4 days, the same. It's the only one that was. But this is a great segue actually into the next question. So you talk about shutting yourself down, and I do that too. And I think, when you're out and about, in my early days of awakening, I'd be walking around the shops and my spirit guide would be there and be telling me, and I had to learn to have those boundaries and learn to shut down and be like, I can't do this now, and not be able to ground and not be able to close down and be walking around channeling everyone and channeling all the food and driving myself crazy. So I had to learn to ground that down. And it's really interesting because regarding the V, um, that topic is probably when I am asked questions, it's mostly about that at the moment. And obviously, the people that sort of follow our work, the awakened individuals, are far more concerned about the V than they would be about the other V, the one that came out in 2020.
Right.
The pathogenic side of things. We were walking around and looking at all the signs and the things you put on your face and everything. Oh, there was a confidence in us all because we knew that was not a real issue. But now, I don't know about you, but I'm walking around thinking, well, I'm glad about these signs saying stay away from me because of the V thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about closing down your fields. Well, obviously I spoke to the nine and I said, look, what's going on with the V? What's happening and what can we do? And one of the things they explained to me is that we as humans naturally, as service to others humans, as positively polarized humans of the light, we naturally radiate our fields when we meet others, and we merge our fields with everyone. It's what humans do. But now
Mm-hmm.
that there is this, if you will, this rogue presentation or signal or energy that is new for this timeline and this planet, merging our fields at the moment isn't necessarily the best thing to do when you're around someone who's been V'd. It's fine for you to still unify your fields with those who have not. So they spoke to me about using a technique of absorbing the field energy rather than radiating it, which is really a service to self esoteric practice, but it's not really. It's what they use, they absorb, but we can use that practice as a temporary measure, as a shield or as a canopy or as some kind of, hermetic seal. And they spoke about the black flame. They showed me the black flame to allow black flames to come through our auric field. I know it sounds really dark, but if it's used in a temporary way, it's the same thing as using an obsidian crystal or a shungite crystal. So I wanted to ask you, have you had any information about using the energy specific to the V signal? Have you had any information about the V signal at all? The nine did say this is only one of multiple methods. So is there a different method that you may have had? And
Mm-hmm.
also adding on to the end of that question, regarding the crystals and shungite, obsidian, any black crystal really, and the dark green and some of the gray crystals, as you can see, I've got them on all the time. We had someone come around today who'd been V'd, so I've got loads of black jewelry all over me. And the crystals, their frequency assists you with that visualization of the black flame because of the black crystals. You can just hold the crystal and that will do the job for you. Now, I saw in one of your videos recently, you spoke a lot about crystals that you had somehow either created yourself or you designed them, the jewelry, you designed the crystal jewelry. So can you talk about the auric field, the signal
Mm-hmm.
within the V, and the crystals that you've designed? Are they also an advised antidote? And if so, where can people find your crystals?
Yeah, great question. Crystals are such an asset, in so many ways, as you know, they're an amplifier of whatever intention we have. And I do have a crystal line, and we've got actually crystal bracelets and crystal malas that align with each of the species. So we've got, I think, 5 or 6 different species out there. And the 9 that you talk to, are they Octurians?
Yes,
Are they Octurian beings?
they are. Or
I'll have to send you I'll have to send you an Octurian mala because so basically I channeled each crystal that is needed and aligned to each species, and they are huge amplifiers of that frequency and vibration of that species. It's really wild. We even have sacred geometry that amplifies the vibration of each crystal. And so recently we also released a New Earth bracelet line as well. One of them is a New Earth physical, and one of them is New Earth spiritual. I actually have them right here. And they also have sacred geometry on the tags as well, just to amplify the frequency. So yeah, and of course, shungite, obsidian, I mean, you name it, hematite, the black crystals are just, they're in every single basically bracelet that I have, just because it's such an anchor of that frequency. And so yeah, that can be found on my website if people are interested in them. But above and beyond that, the biggest message that I have received for the past year, but especially the past, I would say like 6 to 8 months, about the V and what the GFL has said, and they've said it. And I even tuned into them, I think last month, for the April 11th Galactic Federation meeting, which I have every month. And they said, we stand firm, and we basically stand firm behind what we've said before. And what they've been teaching me, and what I've been teaching others for at least the past 3 or 4 months, is it is really, truly, it comes down to your belief. So crystals are great, portals are great. I don't know what else. Sacred geometry is great, right? I mean, all of these things are great assets to us, but if you are disempowering yourself and saying the crystal will help me, the crystal will support me, or the portal will activate me, or what have you, but you don't believe that you can activate, help, support, whatever yourself, then don't even bother with any of the tools that we have, because they're actually harming you, not helping you, because they're teaching you that it's not about you, it's about everything else that you have access to, right? So these tools are fantastic, but ultimately the number one tool is, what is your focus? What is your belief? What conditions are you holding around your reality? What identities are you attaching to? And getting rid of all of that and coming to a place of divine harmony and alignment. And what they taught me about the V was exactly the same thing that they taught me about technology, which is the radiation. And basically, they said that we are able to neutralize any disharmonic frequency around us by going back into 0 point frequency ourselves. If you are, say, for example, if someone's around me, okay, and they got the V, all right, I don't hold any fear around that person. If I were to hold fear, that's going to lower my vibration, and all of a sudden I'm going to get affected based on the fear that I have, not based on the external circumstances of my environment. Same thing. If I had someone around me that had the V, I don't hold any fear, but say, for example, I was drinking this coffee and I'm like, this coffee is so good, or this coffee is so crappy, or whatever it is, that distraction is going to leave me susceptible, okay, to the disharmonic vibrations that are in my environment. So it is truly, truly, truly the practice of being aware of all of the environmental effects, okay, around us, while not holding an attachment or opinion or perspective to those environmental effects, and understanding that no matter what it is, no matter if it's chemicals in the air, in our water, in our food, in the V, in the other people, all right, everything could be dangerous and everything could be beautiful, but the way that it affects us is based on the vibrational frequency that we are in from moment to moment. And that's it. That's all that it comes down to. So we can have all the tools, and I have plenty of tools and lots of things that I love teaching people. But what it comes down to is, what is your belief? And in December, I had to kind of it wasn't really me, it was like more the GFL, but they kind of yelled at my people a little bit. And that's when I get really intense into some rants. And they were angry, and maybe not angry is the right word, because they don't really have that kind of reaction, but they were very serious about the fact that our community, our beautiful, you and I, we have the same community, beautiful, spiritual, open-minded. These are the people of the new earth. These are the people that are going to shift the entire frequency of the planet into a higher vibration. So the fact that we are so attached and so obsessed with the darker agenda and what's happening and the children and the reps and the this and the that and the V and all of the things that are so awful right now, what are we doing? We are feeding our fear into the system that is feeding the matrix. Stop, it's just, we have to stop. So if you don't watch the news, fantastic. If you don't watch TV, great. But if you're watching and obsessing over all of the alternative information that's out there, we need to realize that we are going to get the polarity of one doctor and scientist saying this very firmly, one doctor and scientist saying the opposite very firmly. And who are you going to believe? Get rid of all polarity in your life whatsoever. Stop feeding the binary system and find neutrality and peace from within by observing everything objectively with non-reaction. And that is true freedom. That is true power. And nothing physically or energetically can affect you when you are in that place. And I understand that it takes a long time and a lot of work and a lot of shadow work and a lot of getting rid of a lot of freaking layers and past lifetimes and trauma and all that to get to the place where you are, objective and aware and free enough to be in that frequency. But we have to start, and we have to realize that that is the only solution. And the last time I talked to the GFL, which was not too long ago, they said that the V that is getting rolled out is the ultimate test of our own empowerment. It is not a test of our fear. It's our test of rising above the fear, rising above the matrix. And if we can't do that with all of the training that we've had from many, many lifetimes, then that's going to be an issue. But we need to realize that it really comes down to us, our own perception, and what we are feeding the external reality, and basically what's coming back into our internal reality based on what we're feeding out.
Excellent, excellent. Does there have to be some physical life balance here in doing what you are saying? I've had messages from a lot of people that are Reiki masters and massage therapists that have had clients who have been V'd, and some of them are using protective tools or doing whatever it is they need to do to get into that exact place that you're talking about, and they are absolutely fine. But I do have a few others that have also done this and have had this focus and that intention and the tools, and they are reacting and they are feeling very drained. And so what's going wrong there with those? Because I feel, I'm not saying I've succumbed necessarily to people with the V, but I'm very sensitive to electromagnetic frequencies in, say, mobile phones and cars and telephones, and I feel that if I go to these things too much computer, too much mobile phone, get in someone else's brand new car, if I do it too much, I know it affects me, and I do know how to get that off me, but it will take me several days with the old, the sea salt baths and all those things, and barefoot on the ground, and the consciousness and the meditation. So what would you say to someone who is closely involved with those who've had the V, in a massage way or Reiki, where they're working energetically with them? Because some people are saying they won't work on someone who's had the V. So I know there's no right or wrong here, and you can't really answer the question individually about what one person can do. They have to do that for themselves. But do you have any tips for people who have, feel as though they're doing their absolute best with intention and consciousness and all the tools, and they're still being affected? What might be the issue there?
Okay, well, like you mentioned, I can't say that, oh, well, this is for sure the issue and the person's just not looking at it this way. There's no ultimate answer there. But I want to mention that a couple of things. One is Schumann resonance spikes, solar flares are increasing. I mean, the amount of, we could call it radiation, electromagnetic frequency, what have you. Okay, it's hitting the planet. So the effects that we're feeling, you could chalk it up to, it's too much computer, it's too much coffee, It's too much people with the V. I mean, it's extremely difficult to pinpoint where that's coming from when our environment is saturated, completely saturated. So so the thing is, if people are going into interacting with someone with the V, or even getting the V themselves, right? And you go into it with the mindset of like, oh no, like I'm going to be like doing Reiki on this person and they've had the V, and like I'm very worried about that, but I'm going to do all the protection mechanisms. If you're finding yourself needing to overprotect because of the fear that you still have, don't do it at all. Okay, you're overcompensating with all of the protection mechanisms, worried about the thing that you're just trying to put a band-aid over the fear that you have, rather than dealing with the fear itself. So don't even do it. Don't even bother. So if you're going to say, this giant piece of shungite, which I love, it's probably my favorite crystal, shungite. This giant piece of shungite is going to help me protect from EMF and from V energy and what have you. Fantastic, right? Because you believe that it's going to do that. And yeah, at an objective level, it does do that. Okay. But I could very easily say, this lemonade is going to protect me from. All right, fantastic. So I'm going to always have lemonade around me, right? Or whatever. The emphasis here is not on the thing itself, it's on the belief and the frequency of that. So if people are still getting affected, it means that they're still holding a fear frequency around the thing itself. That's all it comes down to. Whatever vibrational frequency you are in, battling and targeting and observing and overcoming and doing all the things, whatever frequency you're in is the frequency that's going to come back to you. So to say, yeah, I've dealt with it, or yeah, I'm doing the protection, you could be full of crystals and still don't believe that you're powerful enough without any crystals to override that frequency. That frequency is still going to affect you. It's not how much stuff you have around you or how many mechanisms or techniques you're using. It is truly at its raw core, the frequency that you're in that moment, with not holding any fear whatsoever. And so yesterday I had a book signing event. I had 150 people show up. It was supposed to be 2 hours, turned into like 4 hours. And it was amazing. And, masks off and lots of hugs. And there were people who showed up, even though it was a spiritual community, who had the V. And that was that didn't even cross my mind going into it. And the C, and people potentially being sick did not cross my mind going into it, because those aren't frequencies that I allow into my reality. And I don't need to extra protect. There was definitely some healthy boundaries that I created between me and all of the people because of the energy exchanges. But that didn't even cross my mind. And I didn't get affected in that way. Yeah, I was tired because there was a lot of interaction. But other than that, that's not something I enter or allow into my frequency. So the amount of information that's out there on the lower frequency agendas, it's important to understand the agendas that are indeed, yes, it's a fact, it's taking place, but do not allow it to affect your life in a negative way. And always, always, always take a step back and say, I am a soul experiencing this incredible human experience, experiencing this very intense divide within polarizing frequencies. And this is all just an incredible experience. And if Source didn't want to have it this way, it wouldn't be this way. But I'm here, and I'm here for a reason. And taking a step back into that bigger and higher perspective is always needed when we get too caught up in the weeds of the agendas and the issues and the things that are wrong. There, in my mind, there is no difference between radiation from my computer, someone who has had the V, and falling and scraping my knee. There's no difference there, because ultimately I have the power to interpret and absorb whatever frequency I want from those experiences.
I must admit, we had a family member come round today, and we've made exceptions for family members coming in the house who've had the V. We, at the moment, are not at the stage where we want anyone to come in who's outside of the family. So, as I said, I put all these different, look, I got all these on, and this here, and my earrings, and the 9 were laughing at me, and I'm saying, what? And it didn't actually feel like there was any fear. I just thought I'll get every single black necklace I have. And they said to me just very calmly, they said, what you're doing is great, but you don't need to wear all of them. The shungite alone, just one shungite is enough. And you can wear the shungite with the obsidian and with the tourmaline or with the labradite because they work in synergy, but you don't need to put every bit of black jewelry on that you own. I was like, okay. So, but I do know what you're saying about if you are in fear and you think, oh, I need my crystal, and you are putting all your that sort of protection into that crystal and taking it away from you, then you are still in that savior complex and you aren't finding it within
Yes.
yourself. So what about when
Yep.
something is closer, like for example, let's say a relationship. I've had people write to me whose husband has gone and had the V, or the wife has, or
Yep.
and some wives have left the husband, or some have said, if you get the V, I will leave you. Others have remained with their partner, but they don't know whether to sleep in a separate room or and you know, I know you were talking when you did the interview with Jason and Tia about you know, sexuality and our own sexual connection with our partner, how powerful it is spiritually.
Yeah.
And the nine are talking about sort of merging the auric field. So is there an issue with
Yeah.
partners when one has had the V and the other has not? A, the actual physical you know, exchange of
Exchange.
physical matter, and also the energy. I mean, can that be overcome, or is this down to your own boundaries and sovereignty to decide what you will and won't accept in your life? What would you say there?
Right. Yeah. Okay. So just, your last point is it's always up to everyone to make their own choices. And that is something that you and I need to be saying on a daily basis, right? It's always up to you guys. Like always, always, always. Okay. So once again, to say, I'm going to put on crystals to protect myself from energy is a fear-based mindset. And it just because you don't believe that you can do it yourself, right? To say that I'm going to leave my husband because he had the V is a fear-based mindset. It's saying, I'm not powerful enough. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go into a cave for the rest of your life and hide away from 80% of the population who has had the V just because you're scared? This is the problem. We cannot be in fear. So it's really funny. So I'll be personal. I haven't mentioned this publicly yet, but I will, because I was presented with my own very close, I don't know, test. Let's call it a challenge. So me and my wife were planning on, having children, and the universe literally presented us the most amazing, divine, aligned, high vibrational donor. Okay, the donor. All right, and so I saw this video of this doctor talking about all of the different genetic sort of things that come along with the V. And the first question that I had and my wife had is our donor V'd? Is he V'd, right? And so we reached out and we were both curious, and turns out, yeah, he's a caretaker for his parents and he ended up getting the V. And so instantly I'm like, all right, cool. Well, I guess that's not going to be our donor anymore, because that is his genetic material mixing with my genetic material and potentially fertility issues. I mean, who knows, right? So that was my human reaction of, not happening. I went to my spirit guides, and they asked me a couple questions. They said, do you truly believe that you are powerful enough to override vibration at an energetic level and physically? And I said, yeah, absolutely. And just like I mentioned in the book, I was able to override genetic autoimmune disease, right, lupus, with my vibration. So I believe that our genetics, our DNA activation is all based on our vibrational frequency. You want to unlock your DNA, you raise your frequency. Okay, so DNA and frequency are linked. So they said, okay, well, if that's what you truly believe, that you can override any DNA, any genetics with your frequency, then don't be a hypocrite. Don't teach your entire population, hey, we can override anything with our frequency, and then say, no, you know what? I'm not going to use this donor because he has the V, and like that's going to negatively impact me. I can't teach people that we can override this and shy away from it and be fearful about it myself. So after contemplation, speaking with my guides, the Galactic Federation, my higher self, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I'm going to use the donor who has the V. All right. So this is not something that I have mentioned publicly, just because it has been my own kind of internal questioning, but I did make the decision. I'm very firm about it, that I'm not going to allow that. I know, I mean, this is the person who was presented to us. And I double checked with my spirit guides. I said, is this, they're like, why would we send you the right donor just to say, no, be fearful about the V and back away from the perfect genetic, whatever that we need, right? For this little starseed child that's coming through. So my personal opinion and the actions and the choices that I'm making in my own life, which are very divine and aligned to everything that I'm teaching right now, are, I think it's absolutely 100% ridiculous to leave your partner if they've been V'd, and if you love them and you really feel like you need to be with them in your life, that is the most fear-based thing that you can do, right? Nope, can't be with you. Nope, can't see family because you've been V'd. Are you kidding me? Like, how much in your power or out of your power are you to be fearful of that? Are we just going to stop breathing the air because there's freaking day all day? No, I mean, we're not going to stop existing. We are being taught, we are being challenged right now to overcome our physical environment, no matter what it consists of. It's all been shitty things this entire time, and we've overcome that with our vibration. So why allow this one thing to stop us from truly living the best and most free life that we could ever possibly live, just because we're fearful of this? We're setting intentions when we eat food. We're setting intentions when we're drinking water. We're setting intentions when we see the freaking lines in the sky. Why not set intentions for this and understand that we're powerful enough to override the consequences? And we can all agree that there are consequences. Just like there's consequences to eating sugar and eating meat and interacting with low vibe people, this is no different. And we seriously cannot be making choices based on fear and hiding ourselves away for the rest of our lives, because that is not a way to live. And we're being recluse if that's the way that we're making choices. That's just my opinion. That's just my belief, based on the information that resonates with me and what I've channeled. But of course, take it or leave it. I just would hate to see beautiful, divine starseed beings making all of these choices out of fear, because that is an implication to say that I can't be with you because I'm not powerful enough to override the choices that you've made, right? You wouldn't be with that partner if you weren't going to be forced into this challenge of raising your vibration high enough to not allow that to affect us, right? So it's a pretty firm belief, but that's kind of where I stand with all of that.
Well, I highly appreciate you sharing that, especially your personal journey. And I must admit, when I saw the interview with Jason and Tia, I could see you with a child. I can see a child in your reality. Yeah, I do highly appreciate you sharing that. I must admit, I am kind of coming from a different perspective on that. Um, I don't really see it necessarily as fear. So, like, say I was in that situation and my husband decided to get the V. What I would feel, at least I don't think it's fear. I mean, is there fear there? Would I need to look and really find out if it's fear? I don't think it's fear. I think it's more that signal, that rogue signal is not something I can deal with it out in my world and in the shops and with the occasional visitor, and going swimming. I was swimming in a pool yesterday with someone who's had the V, and I was talking to her in the changing rooms. I know how to work, but if it was a relationship for me, I don't think I could go and stay in that loving relationship, because there's a lot of ways of looking at that. And like you said, would you draw someone into your reality who isn't aligned with you? I would think, why on earth have I drawn a man into my life, a partner into my life, who isn't aligned with me? And I haven't, my partner wouldn't. have the V. So, you know, I'm not in that place. So if it was me, I don't think it would be coming from fear. Uh, but I am glad you've shared your perspective, because I have had a lot of people ask me this, and I've given my perspective to everyone, you know, and I've stood by that perspective. But I'm saying to those who've heard me say something quite different, please listen to Elizabeth as well, because I'm giving my perspective based on what I am seeing, and that's spiritually and physically. Elizabeth is doing the same. These are both very valid perspectives. They both have absolute truth to them, and you know, the onus is absolutely on the individual now. It can't ever be on the spiritual teacher, because we're simply just people giving our perspectives about what we see. So I'm really glad that you've shared that, and I want to be able to share that with others, because it's been a big question. And the other one about the V is, can we do something to help those who've had the V, who are perhaps
Yeah.
asleep? They are not awake to any of this. Can we do anything energetic to assist those people on a sort of a remote, you know, sort of secondhand level? I mean, can we work with crystals for them? Can we give them a
Yes.
crystal and say it's a present, but place intention in it? Are there any tools we can use remotely for our daughters and our sons and our loved ones who are asleep still?
Yes, absolutely. So, actually, right now I am developing a course. It's just a mini course, and it's going to be, $22, so very accessible to people. It's a V course. It's how to override the frequency of the V, so that we don't have to make the serious life decisions of, I am getting rid of my lifelong partner because of their decision or what have you. Right? There are techniques. So you use the black flame. A technique that I use quite often is the violet flame, kind of very similar sort of energy. But there's also something else that I've used, and this was downloaded to me a couple months ago, and this is actually part of my second book as well, of basically uploading and downloading karma. So it's how to work with collective karma and individual karma, which is all just a vibrational resonance and vibrational frequency. And we can apply this to, once again, eating sugar or being out in the sun or drinking a bunch of coffee or eating meat. We can apply this to anything that has low vibrational effects to our system. And it's basically a process of uploading the negative effects of the V from our family members and ourselves, if we choose to get it, or if people choose to get it, uploading the negative effects of it within this technique. And basically, it's kind of like thinking about a drop in a bucket. So if you imagine a bucket of water, and the V is a drop of like black ink, right? If you imagine black ink and then a bucket of water, you drop the black ink into the bucket of water, and all of a sudden the black ink disperses and it's no longer concentrated in the same sort of way. This is kind of the technique that I'm going to be teaching in this V course, of how to basically upload any sort of the negative effects of the V, so that it's not as concentrated, and it's more kind of distilled, and evaporated. So we can do this with our family members. You can absolutely give them a crystal. The number one thing when working on others and helping others is to make sure that their higher self is aligned to it, right? So we can't do work on someone who hasn't given us permission. It goes against the law of non-intervention and their free will. But what you can say is, because not everyone is able quite yet to hear other people's spirit guides or their higher self say, yep, this is aligned, this is okay for them, right? So basically what I recommend is to make a statement to say, I'm going to do work on my dad to help him upload any sort of negative effects of the V. And saying a sentence like, if if his soul is aligned to this, or this is a part of his contracts, or if his free will agrees to this, then it will have the effects that it needs to. If his higher self does not agree to this, then it will not have any effects. So instead of waiting for the answer of a yes or no, is this allowed? Is this okay? You kind of just put it out there to say, if this is aligned, it will do what it needs to. If not, then they have their own journey. They have their own mission. You can't save everyone, because sometimes it's in their contracts to go through certain aspects of their reality. So yeah, it's just really important. I'm so firm about just the OCD of the obsession, which is this is going to have a negative, harmful effect on me. And then the compulsion, which is I now have to make certain choices in my reality because of the obsession, the fear, the paradigm that I hold. If you heighten the vibration of the paradigm to say, I am good. I am a child of source, and I am, in this vibration of not necessarily needing to be affected, then that the choices that you make are not limited to the perspective that you hold, right? So it's just understanding truly, truly that we are powerful enough to override and overcome anything at a vibrational, physical, and genetic level. And that is really the strongest message that I have, is just the power that we hold. We can work on others, and we can give them crystals and tools and all of that. But of course, if they're not open to receiving that, then there's really not a whole lot of wiggle room and places that we can go with that. But that power piece of how powerful we are is the number one most important aspect of overriding and overcoming anything in our reality.
Wow, that's excellent. Thank you so much. I'm just going to have a look and see if there was anything else on the V question. Um, so I think I went through. Oh, yeah, I wanted to ask, when about 6 years ago, I think it was, I had like, it's called supraventricular tachycardia, where my heart rate was like 200 beats a minute, and I had to go to emergency, and they had to try to stop that. It was really very scary. And then they looked into why it had happened and everything, which is a long story. And I have, like you said, about working, using your consciousness to overcome things. And I had another health issue when I was around 18, about the same sort of age. Um, like you said in your book, I was the same age. I had a stroke when I was 18 and lost the use of the left side. And I haven't really sort of gone into that too much with my videos, but I've had sort of things that I've had to deal with since then. So I've also worked with my consciousness of my vibration. I can't say I'm 100% symptom free. I'm left with a little bit of a chronic fatigue kind of thing, but I'm not very symptomatic at all, as long as I manage things. So this particular situation with the rapid heartbeat was sort of a continuation of that, really. And I wasn't looking after myself in the way I should have been. So they put me onto beta blockers. I didn't want to take them because I don't like taking any medication. But family members, and I was afraid because I didn't know what had happened, and I hadn't done any research into tachycardia. So I decided to take the beta blockers, and I wasn't on them long. A wonderful herbalist helped me to wean off them, and I took herbs instead. So my question is, when I was on those beta blockers, I found that I couldn't astral project anymore. And I was astral projecting all the time. I started astral projecting in my sort of mid-20s. I think I did it as a child, but I carried on in my mid-20s. And by the time this happened 6 years ago, I was regularly astral projecting. I couldn't do it anymore. I could not get out of body. I no longer had any clairvoyance. I couldn't see the nine. I couldn't see the dimensions. I couldn't see any of the landscapes. I couldn't see the fifth dimension. I couldn't see the colors. And the clairsentience wasn't there. So I didn't have that feeling, that empathy. But the clairaudience, thankfully, which isn't the strongest clair for me, I don't feel, I'd say it was clairvoyance. The clairaudience did not go, thank goodness. I could still hear the nine. And they helped me to navigate through. What I wanted to ask is this just something, would you say, that happened to me? Or are a lot of medications, do they do this? And is this something the V would also do? If so,
Mm-hmm.
what are the tools
Mm-hmm.
to deal with that? As in, because the nine tell me that the V is designed to prevent our ascension process and to stop us from moving into enlightenment and all of the spiritual tools that we have. Obviously, the way you are talking is that if we are in alignment, we can overcome that dark intention. We can override this. Now, the nine have
Yeah.
said that there are individuals that can rewrite their own DNA. They tell me those individuals are rare. But the way you are speaking is you are suggesting that
Mm-hmm.
perhaps it's not as rare as I'm being told, and that actually more of us can do this, and that the agenda to shut down our spirituality, shut down our ascension, and reduce the amount of people on the planet, that agenda is not going to work the way that they want it to. So, looking at medications, what happened to me and the V, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, totally. Okay. So the agenda, that's a thing. That's real. That's like actually happening. You know, obviously the V is a big part of that plan. Okay. And you know, the GFL have confirmed all of that. Okay. So that's the truth. That's a thing that's happening. You know, but so are all the chemicals that are put everywhere else, right? It's like all part of that plan. Um, and yeah, I truly believe that we're all hybrid beings. I mean, we all kind of experience that that missing link, you know, back in our preliminary days of Neanderthal, Homo erectus, Homo sapien. We're all hybrids. We all have many different DNA strands that are not yet realized and unlocked. And that's all we have to do. Our vibrational frequency will unlock higher DNA strands, which allow us to do and have the clairs and all of the other things. So I am definitely I've never ever been told that I am special in my abilities or in my ability to rewrite my DNA. I've never been told that I am unique in that ever by the GFL. They have always told me that everyone has the capacity to do that. So I'm very strong and firm in believing and understanding that. But once again, like that's just my interpretation, perspective, whatever, you know, what have you. And so as far as medications, 100%, I would agree that, and it's not all, I can't say every single medication across the board is like this. I haven't personally, the only medication I've ever been on is blood pressure lowering medication because I have circulation problems because of the autoimmune stuff. And that didn't affect me spiritually at all, but it was a very minor kind of dose of whatever. What I have channeled from many other clients, especially clients who have schizophrenia, psychosis, you know, other kind of mental health disorders, and they've been put on a lot of the, even like antidepressant, anti-anxiety, and basically psychosis medications. They all block the third eye and the access to higher vibrational realms. Now, I have said this very publicly many times before that I am not someone who says, the whole Western medicine, you know, medical field is wrong. I don't say that. I say that Eastern is just as important as Western. And the reason why I say that is because there have been interdimensional beings who have embodied doctors and scientists and what have you, and have given us things like penicillin or antibiotics or what have you. Like we have advanced because of their help and their knowledge. So I can't say that the whole Western field is really awful and corrupt. I mean, big pharma is super corrupt, obviously. But I do believe that, especially for people who open their third eye really instantly and get put into, unfortunately, a psych ward or hospital or what have you, very detrimental. And sometimes those medications are grounding. That's what I have channeled, that they are grounding to the point where you're right. Yeah, they block you from your spiritual capabilities. And sometimes that's good for a short period of time. And then you get off them and you're able to open yourself back up and hopefully maybe a little bit of a more step by step. And I'm hoping that you, especially after getting off of the medications, you were able to regain your abilities, right? So
Yes.
that's a good validation that I've never seen that medications are going to be detrimental, for your whole life if you're on them for a year or two or what have you. So I'm not. I think it would be very wrong of me to say all medications are wrong, stay away from them. I do believe that they have a place in our life, but of course, attachment, codependency, even addiction to certain medications to say, this is making me better, right? That's very dangerous to get into. But I do believe that medications do have a place in our reality as well. And I also believe that they do limit and block our abilities, because I have observed that before. And I do believe that that can be positive and sometimes it can be negative. It really depends on where you're at and what your intention is and what your contracts really have to hold for you as well.
Oh, I just wanted to say that about the rare thing, the nine have told me the same, that
Mm-hmm.
the GFL have said to you, that everyone has the capability to do this. But what they're saying is that some people are blocking that capability. And the most probable timeline at the moment
Yep.
is that only a few people do it. That's the thing. Those that do rewrite the DNA code, the ones that have had the V, it's a small group of very rare individuals
Yeah.
who actually make the necessary commitment, which is incredibly dedicated, to be able to override and to do all the things that you're saying. Now, what I hope is that we shift the timeline, and I feel that you are seeing a
Yes.
timeline where far more people override the DNA, far more
Oh,
people
yeah.
than what I'm being shown. So I really hope that we go into the timeline that you're seeing. And this is why everyone listening to this, although I've been talking a lot about this lately, I think Elizabeth's viewpoint here is extremely valid. And I'm so glad that you've come on to say what you are saying, because none of us know which timeline we're going to go into. And yours is
Yeah.
much more positive. So I presume you do not see mass, all of these people taking the V, passing away. Um, do you see that happening a little bit, but not on a global level?
Right. Yes. Yeah, a little bit, but not on a global level. I mean, when I first got introduced to the GFL, they were talking about, you know, uh, 30 to 50% of the population, based, and that was back in 2010. I had no idea what was going to happen, how that was going to happen. Like, I just had no idea. And they didn't explain what that timeline looked like either back then. These days, and I work with actually an Arcturian council, part of the GFL, and they call themselves the Timeline Council, and it's really wild tapping into them, because every time I tap into them, I mean, and the battle that's taking place between the dark agendas and the Timeline Council, it's really wild, because they will lead the GFL because they know that they're being watched on this road of, oh, this is what's going to happen because these are the choices that we're making as the agenda, because they control mass media. They basically control the population right now of the planet, and the vibration subsequently. And so, yeah, so the agendas, the dark agendas are taking the timelines for a loop, and the GFL is trying to catch up with the timelines that they're predicting based on the agendas that are rolling out. And then the dark agenda will flip. It's like they're leading the GFL agendas and the timeline councils down these rabbit holes, so that that's what they're observing, so that that's what they're working on. And then all of a sudden the timeline will flip. So right now, timelines are all up in the air. Even the GFL, with all of their abilities to tap into the most predominant timelines, they're always shifting and changing. The biggest thing, Magenta, is if people like us who have a community, who have a network, we need to be very careful about what we're telling people is possible, so that we can help the people gain access to the ability through their belief in knowing that they're able to override these things. Because belief, and if you take a look at things like the placebo effect, I mean, that is what creates our vibration. And, it's not the environment, it's our belief around the environment. If I said, this super sugary drink is going to give me energy for the day, or it's going to like increase my vibration, or it's going to like give me fuel, or maybe fiber, or whatever my belief is, I'm telling my body while I'm drinking this super bad sugary drink that it's going to actually benefit me and give me nutrients. If my belief is that strong while I drink this drink, it's going to give me those nutrients. And I believe that. I believe that we are Neo and we're jumping across to that other building. And it's really truly our belief to say, can we defy the laws of physics? And I believe, yes, we can. We can all levitate. We can all walk through walls. We just have to unlock the DNA that we have within us. But we're all capable of those things, just like we're all capable of getting cancer if we lower our vibration in that sense, right? So I think that it's so important for us as teachers to let people know how important it is, belief is, attachment is, identity is, and that kind of understanding. And the belief really always needs to come back to us as a soul and not necessarily the things that we have or the tools that we have around us, like teaching the black flame and teaching quantum uploading techniques. That's where we're going, right? Because it defies the space and time, right? We're going into the new Earth is a quantum Earth. It is not necessarily a physical Earth. There's nothing we need to do within space and time. It all happens instantly, but we need to start realizing that and bringing those experiences into and anchoring into our reality to get to that place of full freedom and liberation. So it pains me to see people making decisions and holding back on living their best life based on the fears that they have of things affecting them. I mean, there are pesticides in our food. There's the air. I mean, and I'm not caving myself away because I understand that those things are out there, and it's really important that we don't do the same thing with the V.
Right. Really, really important words. Thank you. So I
Yeah.
don't want to keep you for long. I think we've been speaking for ages, but one last question. I saw something last year, I think middle of 2020. The Nine was showing me how the agenda isn't just about the pathogen and the V and all of those things. The agenda is wider. The agenda uses all the elements and all the space on our planet. And I saw something in space. I don't know what it is. I don't know what I saw. And the Nine, you were saying earlier about them being coy and cagey, and there's certain things they won't say until the time is right. So I'm not getting much information, but I saw something in space, almost as though space is being used in some way, in both ways, like against us, and something good is happening there too. Is there some kind of, do you see real ETs coming down in UFOs? I mean, do you have any idea of what could be happening in space right now, or in the future, in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know too much. I'll kind of relay what I do know. There is, I'm not sure how, but I was made aware of it. I asked the GFL about it. They were tracking that project for quite some time, and that this is going kind of back into like, the 40s and the 50s. Like, I mean, they've had that kind of technology for quite some time, and so they've been kind of tracking the agendas and of certain technologies in relation to that. It's very fascinating. About a year ago, maybe, I think it was actually a little bit longer than that, maybe like around 2018, I did and what they said was, yes, it would be detrimental if they did that, but it would also be extremely awakening for a huge majority of the population on this planet. And so now the agendas, okay, the powers that be, the shadow government, whatever you want to call them, they aren't they aren't going to follow through. This is what they told me back then, was that they're hesitant now. They're kind of 50-50 on following through with that agenda and that project, just because it would actually have a huge impact on the awakening. So I thought that was really fascinating, that that's kind of the conclusion that they made back in 2018. I think that if they were going to do that, they would have done that sooner, and they haven't done that yet, in a sense. So that's really fascinating. And then as far as like the other kind of space things, there's a giant Galactic Federation mothership that hangs out right outside of our Earth's atmosphere. It's encloaked right now. So that's maybe a positive aspect of what's out there in space, especially in our solar system. And then we've got a huge, like, kind of dark base that's set up around Saturn. I've taken a look and have been observing them for quite some time. And then we also have like a lot of satellites that I am a little bit concerned about, that are being thrown into our atmosphere. And I just, when you said the kind of like not so good stuff in space, that's the thing that I thought of instantly. And it also takes me back to the California wildfires and the freaking beams that were coming from nowhere to create these fires, which is very fascinating. And I believe that that is technology that they have up there. And I believe they haven't really touched it since the California wildfires, especially since they kind of effed up and photos of the real deal were out there, and really they got exposed, and they weren't expecting that. So that's kind of like, when you say that, right now there isn't a battle going on necessarily out there, but there's for sure a battle etherically, energetically in the astral going on here. And that's why so many starseeds are getting exhausted and just feeling that drain. And when you say that you've been dealing with just chronic fatigue, the instant thing that came to me was, you're a light warrior. Like, you're like, I call it doing double shift. Not only are you here as a teacher, awakening and expanding and helping and questioning and relaying messages physically within space and time, but you're out there all the time doing astral work and defending and protecting and gaining access to information and, you know, doing your ambassador thing. And so you're doing a double shift. And I've had to tell my guides and my beings and my higher self is that I want to just take a night off for once, you know, and I always get a good sleep when I do that. But that really, it feels like that's where the chronic fatigue is coming from. Just with you, is like you're out of your body often because you're doing so much work often. And sometimes it's actually a little bit of a vacation for us to come back into our body to say, I'm going to eat really yummy food, and I'm going to watch Netflix all day, and I'm going to chill, and I'm going to walk, you know, in the woods, or I'm going to play with my dog, or whatever it may be. But being human and coming back into this 3D density and shutting off all the different realities that are out there, to me, is a vacation. And I've only really learned how to access that and utilize that for the positive very recently. I used to be so in resistance against my human reality that I was always out of body. I was always tired, and I had tons of autoimmune issues because of that, you know. And so now I like to flip back and forth to my benefit. So that's just something that I wanted to maybe plant a seed in you as well, because I can definitely feel that you're doing the double shift, and, you know, sometimes it's good to just take a break and chill.
Oh, well, that's really nice of you to say. And for you, I feel, you know, energetically, you have such a powerful healing ability. And I know you're aware of it, but it shines out in every word you say. And even if someone is listening to you and doesn't really understand what you're saying and doesn't get what you're saying, the healing energy and the activation energy is very powerful. And I see you doing amazing, amazing things. I would recommend everyone to definitely check out your course, especially if it's to do with the V and the transmutation of the V.
Yeah.
So can you talk a little bit before we go about your book, which is called You're Not Dying, You're Waking Up. Yeah.
Just waking
I
up.
love the artwork in there. It's fantastic. You know, the little pictures with each chapter, the lady, so beautiful. Is that modeled on you? Are those pictures you?
Yeah, it's supposed
I
to be a
thought
representation of me. Yeah, yeah.
beautiful. So can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about your book, and where can people find your book?
Yep. So the book is available pretty much on Amazon everywhere. So if you want the Kindle edition, it's on there. If you want the physical paper book, it's on there as well. And it really is just a beautiful overview of every single stage that you're going to encounter throughout your awakening and your ascension. And I feel like the past 10 years for me has been going through and in the trenches of each one of those stages. And then, you know, by the end, like chapter 16 talks about what species you're connected to, right? I mean, obviously I only go over like 5 species, so I don't even touch, you know, most of them. But what species you're most connected to, what soul mission you may have. Are you the satellite? Are you the pillar? Are you the grid worker? You know, and then I go into a little bit of quantum physics and simultaneous time and, you know, you being the God, the master of your reality and what that looks like and feels like. So it really goes from depression, anxiety, questioning, conspiracy theories, you're going crazy to, you know, to the other end of the spectrum. So it's a really good overview. This is a really good book as well, just to give family members and other people saying, hey, this is kind of the stuff that I'm into. And like, you know, let me say it rather than you have to say it. And if that person really reads the book, they're like, wow, like I think I'm going through an ego death right now, you know? So it's really incredible to spread the message that way. It's a very like kind of easily accessible book for everyone who's just questioning their reality, you know, and going through it. So yeah, so Amazon is the place to find that. And then I also have homework and meditations and an oracle card deck that are also aligned to the book as well. And that can be found on the book bundle, which is my online school platform, but also just in my website as well. You'll find it under everything book. So that's been really amazing. And I'm very excited to move on to my next books, many books, and really deep dive into very complex topics that I just can't relay in a 1-hour segment on a video or what have you.
Exactly, exactly. I love writing. But yes, what you said is exactly the first thing I thought when I was reading. I thought, goodness me, I know who I can give this book to, because my stuff is a bit sort of too full on for some people I know and some of my family members. But yours is, as you say, accessible. And I know instantly who I'm going to give the book to, a member of my family who would absolutely love it. Funnily enough, it's my granddaughter. She's only 15 and she's just started waking up and she's just getting into crystals. And she asked me to buy her a book on astrology. And then she asked me to buy her a crystal book. And she said, Nana, did you know that you can put your crystals out in the moonlight every month on the full moon to cleanse them? I said, yes. She goes, do you do that with your crystals? I'm like, well, no, I actually don't, but I really should. I've got my 15-year-old granddaughter. So I'm going to get her your book, because although I know it's an adult book, it's perfect for her, because this was the age you were when you woke up.
Yeah.
She's that age now. I'm loving your book. I'm finding it really delightful, and I'm going to carry on reading it. As I said, I'm only of a sort of third of the way through, so I'm on the sort of first bit. I haven't got to the lighter bit. I'm still on the sort of conspiracy end, which I'm thoroughly enjoying and really, really relating to you. So thank you so much for joining me, Elizabeth, today. I think we've had a wonderful chat. I really, really hope we can do this again sometime.
Yeah.
And thank you, everyone, for listening to us both. And please check Elizabeth April out. If you don't know who she is and you've never heard of her before, then please go check her website, because she's absolutely amazing, in my opinion. So I'm really honored to have had you as a guest today. So
Thank you.
I will stop recording and say goodbye. And let's talk again, Elizabeth. I know you're massively busy, but whenever the time is right, in divine timing, let's talk again sometime.
Yes.
Okay, I'll just stop
Thank
recording now. Bye,
you.
everyone. Thanks for listening. Bye.